All right, guys. Now, can you see my screen now? Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Confirm?
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
So today we are talking about one concept, how to represent Java class. Today we are talking about a concept called how to represent Java class as a Spring Bean. First of all, what is a Spring Bean? Guys, please answer. What is Spring Bean?
A class which
Yeah,
is lifecycle maintained by IOC container.
IOC is called as
Managed by IOC.
Class
IOC container manage the dependency.
which is managing, the class which is managing by IOC container, or the class which is managing by IOC container is called as Spring Bean. That means for your class, if the life cycle is managing by IOC container, then we can call that class as Spring Bean. Now, so I hope all of you from the Spring framework background, you might have developed several applications by using Spring framework like Spring core module. When you develop a application by using Spring framework, how you represented your Java class as a Spring Bean?
annotation.
By using annotations, you can represent.
Yes.
By using annotation, you can represent your Java class as a Spring Bean, and by using XML approach also, you can represent your Java class as a Spring Bean. By using annotation, you can represent your Java class as Spring Bean. By using XML approach also, you can represent your Java class as Spring Bean.
Okay.
But when it comes to Spring Boot, we don't use any XML approach. Everything is annotation based approach. So here we are not going to use any XML configurations in the Spring Boot. XML configuration is completely avoided in the Spring Boot. Here we are going to use only annotations to develop our applications. Able to follow me? Right. Now, what are the annotations that we are having to represent our class as a Spring Bean? It's not one annotation. There are several annotations are available. There are several annotations are available to represent our class as a Spring Bean. First one, at component. Second one, at service. Third one, at repository. Fourth one, at configuration. Fifth one, at bean. And sixth one, at controller. And the last one, at the rate rest controller. So there are several annotations are available. There are several annotations are available to represent our class as a Spring Bean. To represent our class as Spring Bean. Are you able to follow this, guys? Could you please tell me what are the annotations available to represent our Java class as a Spring Bean?
Annotation component.
Component
Controller, REST controller.
Very good. Now here, guys, all these annotations are class level annotations except at bean. This at bean annotation, it is method level annotation. Remaining all are class level annotations. This at bean is the only annotation which we will use at the method level. This annotation we are going to use at the method level. Now, so if you want IOC container to create the object for your class, then you will use class level annotations. If you use all the class level annotations, then IOC container will take care of object creation. But I have a special requirement. I want to instantiate the class on my own. I have some customized logic for instantiation. Then we will go for get bean annotation that we will write at the method. Inside the method, we will write the logic to create the object for the class. If you want to create the object for a class and you want to represent that as a Spring Bean, then you will go for get bean. The remaining all are class level annotations. When you use any one of that annotation for your Java class at the class level, then that class will be represented as a Spring Bean and the life cycle will be managed by IOC container. Okay. Now, whenever component scanning is started, that Spring Boot will check is there any class which contains any of these annotations? If a class contains any one of these annotation, then IOC will load that class and it is going to instantiate that. It is going to create the object for that class that will be represented as a Spring Bean. That will be represented as Spring Bean. Guys, are you able to follow this? So whenever component scanning is happening, these annotations will be identified if you use them at the class level, if you use them at your classes. If any one of these annotation, if you use at your class, then that class will be managed by IOC container. Okay. Now I'm going to create one project, guys, to demonstrate on this. Let me create file, new project, Spring Starter project. What do you mean by Spring Starter project? Guys, what do you mean by Spring Starter project?
Spring Boot application.
Spring Starter project is nothing but it is a Spring Boot application. Okay. Spring Starter project I'm using. It will ask to provide few details here. Now, let me provide details. 01 Spring Boot application. jar group ID, artifact ID, package com.ashok IT. Click on next. The guys, last week we have seen 2.4.1 version, but today 2.4.2 version came in the Spring Boot. Okay, so we don't need to bother about the versions of the Spring Boot. You need to assume that currently we are working with Boot 2.x version, because next week one more version will come, 2.4.3. They are already in the pipeline. Right. I'm not selecting any dependencies here. Simply clicking on the next and click on finish. Boot application is getting created. Are we going to get any starter, or we don't get any starter now? Are we going to get any starter, or we are not going to get any starter now?
We will get default
We will
starters.
get no default
Default
starter
Going to
is
get
available.
default starter. What is the default starter name, guys?
Spring
Start
Boot starter.
Spring Boot
Spring Boot
Starter and
Dot-
Spring
start
Boot
dot io.
starter test.
starter. Right now, what is the purpose of the Spring Boot starter? It will give you the dependencies which are required to develop our
Standalone application.
standalone boot application. So
Standalone.
to develop the standalone application, what are the jars required? Those jars will be provided by default starter. Very good.
Spring Boot.
Guys, please mute your mics if you are not speaking. Lot of disturbance is coming. Please mute your mics. Okay, right. Guys, project got created. Now go to start class. Auto configuration is enabled for our project, or auto configuration is not enabled for our project.
Configuration
Guys,
enabled.
auto configuration is enabled for our project.
Enable.
Enabled. Right. Now, component scanning is enabled for our project or not enabled for our project?
Enabled.
Am I writing component scanning here, or I no need to write the component scanning here?
Need to write
Right.
No need to
I
write.
no need to write the component scanning. Why I no need to write the component scanning?
Building function. Building.
Application
a part
internal.
of its writer, it is
It's
Spring
already
Boot
part of
application.
boot application annotation. Component scanning is already part of boot application
Spring
annotation.
Boot application.
It is already part of boot application annotation, so it is inbuilt functionality. Okay. Now let me create some classes. Let me create some classes by using those annotations to represent our class as a Spring Bean. Here, guys, please mute your mics. Lot of disturbance is coming. Please mute. If you don't mute, I have to mute everybody. Then session will not be interactive. You will feel bored. Okay, please take care of that. I'm going to create one class here with a name called user DAO. I'm keeping that class inside the DAO package. You people are not listening. So I muted everyone. Don't listen just. Here, I have taken a class with a name called user DAO. I want to represent this class as a Spring Bean. So DAO nothing but persistent layer. To represent persistent layer classes as a Spring Beans, generally we will use at repository annotation. I'm using one annotation called at repository to represent this class as a Spring Bean, so that lifecycle will be managed by IOC container. Lifecycle will be managed by IOC container. Let us import a package for this. Yes. Let me write one zero param constructor to understand whether object is creating for this class or not. So system.out.println. System.out.println, I am writing user DAO constructor. User DAO constructor. Is it a normal class or is it a Spring Bean class now? It is a Spring Bean class now because we are using at repository annotation. Let me create one more class, new class. I'm taking this as user service. User service. This I'm keeping inside one more package called service package. I'm keeping this in one more package called service package. Here also I'm going to write zero param constructor. So system.out.println user service constructor. Let's represent this also as a Spring Bean. For that I am using at service annotation. I am using at service annotation. Okay, fine. I will take one more class utils. I will take one more class called utils. New class email utils. This one I will keep in the util package. I will keep this in the util package. For this class, I will use an annotation called at component. For three classes, I'm using three different annotations, guys. I'm using at component annotation. Here also, I'm writing system.out.println email utils. Email utils constructor. Perfect. Component I have used, service I have used, repository also I have used. Next, configuration. Now, let me take this new class app config. I'm taking one class with a name called app config. For this, I'm giving config package. So to represent the Java class as a configuration class, we will go for at configuration annotation. At configuration annotation. Now, inside this, I'm writing system.out.println app config constructor. App config constructor. So here we have a start class, we have config class, we have DAO, we have service, we have utils. So config class, app config. How I am representing this Java class as a config class? By using configuration annotation. By using configuration annotation, I'm representing this Java class as a configuration class. I'm representing this class as a configuration class. All right. I have taken DAO class. To represent this DAO class as a Spring Bean, I'm using at repository annotation. And I have taken a service class. To represent this as a Spring Bean, I used at service annotation. And I have taken a util class. To represent this as a Spring Bean, I used at component. So all these annotations I'm using in one project in multiple classes to represent them as Spring Beans. Now, let's start our project and see all these classes will be loaded or not. Run as boot app. So I'm not using controller and REST controller because those are web related annotations. Currently, we are not creating a web application. So when I create web application, then I will demonstrate on controller and REST controller. Right. Now look at this. Config class object is created. DAO class object created. Service class object created. Util class object also created. So all the annotations which I have used are scanned in the component scanning or not. Guys, please respond now. Whatever the annotation that I have used, is it participated in the component scanning process or it is not participated in the component scanning process?
It is
Part
participated.
of a component scanning process.
process.
Can I represent Java class as a Spring Bean by using component annotation?
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
Can I represent Java class as a Spring Bean by using repository annotation?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Can I represent Java class as a Spring Bean by using service annotation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can I represent Java class as a Spring Bean by using configuration annotation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Now, for these, I have used all these annotations at the class level or at the method level.
Class
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 level.
These annotations at the class level, all I have used them at the method level.
Class.
They are used at class
The
level.
class level. So, who is creating object for these classes? Being a programmer, I am creating the object, or IOC container creating the object.
IOC
container is going to create object.
IOC
Creating the
container.
object. IOC container is creating the object. Now, here I'm creating one class with a name called motor. I'm creating a class with a name called motor. Now, here I'm writing zero param constructor. Zero param constructor. System.out.println. System.out.println. I'm going to write motor constructor. Motor constructor. Okay, this is my code. Inside this constructor, I have some logic. Inside this constructor, assume that I have some logic to start the motor. Logic to start the motor. Now, here, I don't want IOC container to create the object for my class. Guys, understand the requirement carefully. I don't want IOC container to create the object for my class, but I want to represent this class as a Spring Bean. That means I want to create the object for this class, but IOC should recognize this class as a Spring Bean. For the remaining classes, IOC is creating the object, IOC is recognizing them, IOC is recognizing them as a Spring Beans. Recognizing them as a Spring Beans. Now, object will be created for the motor, or object will not be created for the motor now.
Object will not be
Will
created.
not be created.
Object
We
will
need
not
to.
be created for the motor class. Why object will not be created for the motor class?
Because
Because
it is
we are
not
not
managing
Spring Bean
Because
the
we are
IoT
not
container.
making it.
It is not a
Did we
Spring Bean.
represent this class as
We
a
are
Spring
not making the class
Did
as
we
a Spring
represent this
Bean.
class as a Spring Bean, or we have not represented this class as a Spring
Have
Bean?
not.
We
We are
have
not representing this class
this
as
class
class
as
as
a
a
Spring
Spring
Bean.
Bean.
Can I say it is a normal Java class in the project
Yep.
now?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
A normal Java class in the project. Right click, run as boot application. Guys, I hope everyone is able to follow me.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
See here, configuration class object is created, DAO class object created, service class object created, utils class object is also created, but motor class object is not created. If I represent that component, object will be created, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that because for this motor, I need to pass some parameters. Integer a comma, integer b comma, integer c. I want to do this. I want to do this. Able to follow? So I have a customized logic. I have a customized logic to start my motor. IOC container don't know what is my customized logic. IOC container will always try to create the object by using new operator. Always try to create the object by using new operator. I don't want to do that. Being a programmer, I know the importance of the motor class, and I will write the logic to create the object for the motor as per my requirement. I will write the logic to create the object for the motor as per my requirement. Then I will go to configuration class. I will go to configuration class. Here I will write a method public motor create instance. Public motor create instance. Now what I will do is motor is equal to new motor of some 10, 20, 30, something like this. This is my logic. This is my logic. Then I will return this motor object. So can I say this is instantiation logic of the motor?
Yes.
Can I say it is instantiation logic of the motor?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
Knows this instantiation logic? IOC knows that, or programmer knows about it?
Programmer
knows
about it.
Because
Program
we
knows
have a
about it.
custom requirement. We have a custom requirement.
We have a custom requirement. Yeah, exactly.
Now, if this motor object is required, this method should be executed or not? When,
This
how can I
method,
get the
yes.
motor object now? How can I get the motor object now? By calling create instance.
Create instance.
By calling create instance.
Create instance.
I will do one thing. I will tell to IOC container, hey IOC container, motor class should be represented as a Spring Bean. But you don't apply your brain. You just call my method. It will give you object. You represent that as a Spring Bean. So I need to provide some instruction to the IOC container to call this method. Why this method should be called now? Why this method should be called?
Object creation is
To
there in that
consider
method.
this
Object creation.
This method is
Because
called. This
we know
method
how to create the object.
this method contains the logic to create the object and it is going to return that object. If that method is called, object will be created for that class and that object will be returned from that method, then that can be represented as a Spring Bean. Okay. So how to inform the IOC container to call the method? By writing at bean annotation. Okay. I told you.
Okay, that's the method level.
I
It is a
told you
method
what is
level.
the bean. It is a method level. So can I use that at the class level or I should use at the method level?
Only method level, sir.
Only
Only
method level.
level. Why I need to use this at the method level?
Method level.
Why I need to use at the method level?
to consider this
To inform the
class.
IOC
Because
container
this
to
method
call
now-
our method. To inform the IOC container to call our method. So what our method is returning? An object is returning. IOC will call that method. IOC will receive that object. IOC will represent that object as a Spring Bean class object. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. Now,
Yes.
let's run and check it. Let's run and check it. Here, right click on this project, run as Spring Bean. Run as Spring Boot app. Right click on the project, run as Spring Boot application. Now, motor class object is created or not?
Yes.
Constructor is executed means what? Object got created. Earlier, object got created or earlier object is not created? Not created. Simply, let me remove this bean annotation. Remove the bean annotation. If I remove the bean annotation, is it a normal method or is it a special method?
Normal.
It's a normal method.
Normal method.
Call this method or IOC will not call this method.
IOC will not call.
call this
If
method.
IOC is not calling this method, motor is a normal class or motor is a Spring Bean.
Motor is a normal class.
Normal
Class.
Motor is a normal class. It is not a Spring Bean. Now run as boot app. Run as boot app. Right. Now see, motor class object is created or motor class
Not
object is not
created.
created?
Not created.
Not created. Now tell me when to go for @bean annotation.
If you
Tell me
want
when to go for @bean annotation.
if you want to customize
IOC container
Right, sir.
as a
If you want to customize the object creation of a class, then you will write a method using @bean annotation. You will write a method by using @bean annotation. Are you able to follow this? If you want to customize the object creation for a class, then you will write a method and you will annotate that method by using @bean, so that IOC container is going to call that method and will represent that class object as a Spring Bean class object. So many people will get confused. Sir, what is @configuration and what is @bean? @configuration annotation is used to represent your class as a configuration class. @bean is used to represent your method to be called by IOC container, and that method will return the object. That object will be represented as a Spring Bean class object. Is this clear? Now, sir, okay, we understood.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Hold on. Sir, okay, we understood this. Fine. Here you have taken a motor object or you can take a car object, that's fine. But could you please tell me in the real time where we are going to use this? Can anybody give me
Data.
use case?
REST template configuration, Redis database configurations.
Exactly. Excellent. I want to customize my REST template. I need to create the object for the REST template. I want to set some headers for the REST template. Okay. I want to customize my data source. I want to customize my data source properties. Then I will create a method like this. I will set the data source properties. I will return the data source object. I want to customize my Kafka producer configuration, Kafka consumer configuration. And a simple example, I want to configure Swagger for my REST API. We are going to develop RESTful services in the future. For that REST API, I want to add a Swagger. Let me show you one example from previous batches so that you will get the clarity. Okay. 1 second. Let me go for 03 SBMS workspace. Yes, can you check the number of the Swagger project here? Somewhere I have explained about the Swagger there.
$23, I think.
Down.
Sir, you can find, right?
50,
Control F.
53 ready.
Control F.
This cache, that's
It's,
different.
I think 23.
Here also you can see, sir. Redis cache also you can see.
Yes, sir.
Java config. Okay, Swagger config. Open this class. Open this class. Can you tell me what is this annotation?
Configuration.
Configuration.
What is the purpose of configuration? What is the purpose of configuration?
To configure.
To
The
configure
purpose of configuration.
to configure
This is the
classes.
object.
What is the purpose of configuration?
IOC.
To configure the Swagger class.
To represent our class as a
Spring Bean.
Spring Bean.
now. Can you see what is this annotation? Can you see what is that annotation?
Yeah, annotation bean.
Iterate bean. What is the purpose of
Iterate
iterate bean?
To customize the object
I-
creation by IOC
Ah,
content.
which class object is customized here? Which class object is customized here?
Docker
Class.
class.
Docket.
Docket.
Docket class
Docket.
object is customized. Docket class object is customized. Now, tell me who is going to call this method?
IOC container.
IOC container is going to call this method. So this method is returning a docket object. Now, can I say docket is a Spring Bean now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can I
Yes,
say
sir.
docket is a Spring Bean?
Yes.
Customized Spring.
Yes, right. Because we are informing IOC container to call the method. That method is returning a docket object. The docket object will be represented as a Spring Bean. Right. So whenever you are going to add the Swagger for your project, we are going to use this add bean. Whenever you use REST template, you will use add bean. Whenever you use web client configuration, Redis cache configuration, Kafka producer configuration, Kafka consumer configuration, security configuration, if you want to use security for your project, that time also you are going to customize object creation for your application. Then we are going to use add bean annotation. Okay, now you may get a doubt. Ashok, do I need to write this add bean only inside the configuration class, or can I write this method anywhere?
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Do I
If
need to
we
write
want.
this only inside the configuration class, or I can write this anywhere in my application?
Anywhere in my
Anywhere.
application.
You can
In my
write
application.
anywhere, you can write in any class, but that class also should be a Spring Bean.
Yes.
Are you getting my point?
That can be
Yes, sir.
annotated with any annotation, right?
Right now, let's take this. If I keep that in the motor class, here only I'm writing this method. Will it be called or it will not be called?
It
Not be
will
called.
Not be called. Will not be called.
Will not be called. Are you
Because it's
sure?
not a Spring Bean class.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Can we
Yes,
test
sir.
it? Can we
Yes.
test it?
Yes,
Right
sir.
click,
Yes.
run as boot app.
Will be called. I think.
No, it's not.
No call. I think.
Check it.
Without motor
No
object,
called.
we cannot
Yes,
call
yes,
inside
yes.
method.
Is it called or it is not called?
Not called.
It is not called. Why it is not called?
Motor object, we
Motor
cannot
Motor-
inside method.
I use admin, right?
Because motor is not a Spring Bean class.
I use admin, right? If I use admin, IOC should call this method, na?
Yeah.
Then why it is not called?
First you
That's
check
more
Because
the
this class
class.
is not
First
a
you check
Spring Bean
the class
class.
is
First
Spring
class
Right.
is a Spring Bean class or not?
Right, excellent. whenever you write a method with a bean inside any class, this method will be called if that class is Spring Bean.
Yes.
sir, exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
now let me take this out. Let me keep this in the DAO. Will it be called or it will not be called?
It will be called.
It will be called.
It will be called.
Check it, test it. Don't come to the conclusion, test it. Right click, run as boot app. Guys, I hope you are enjoying the boot classes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
The
Create.
right content.
Yes,
You are in the safe hands. Right. Called or not called?
Called.
Why it is called this time?
Because
Because
it is a
Because
Spring
under-
Bean.
Spring Bean
under-
class. You said you
I declared this method inside the Spring Bean class. So the Spring Bean will be loaded by the IOC container and IOC will recognize that method. IOC is calling that method.
Exactly. Good.
Let's cut from here. I will keep in service. Will it be called or it will not be called?
Call.
will be called.
It will call.
Check it.
Will be called, sir.
Run as boot app. Run as boot app. Is it calling or not? Akhil, please mute your mic, sir. Right now. So even if I declare that method in the service class, it is getting called because that service class is a Spring Bean. But in the real time, generally such kind of bean methods we don't write anywhere except configuration. So if you want to do such kind of bean customizations, we will write those methods inside the configuration class because so people can easily recognize where the customized configuration available for our project. I can write in the DAO also, but will it be having the readability or it will not have that readability?
Will has the readability.
It will not have the readability. Here I am customizing. Here I am customizing. That means can I say I am customizing some configuration? So if I am doing some customization, it's better to write that in the configuration class. It's better to write that in the configuration class instead of writing in the DAOs and services. We will create a separate configuration class. In that configuration class, we are going to do that. Okay. Now, and I will ask one more question, guys. I will remove this method from here, and I will keep that in the start class. Will it be called or it will not be called?
Yes.
Yeah,
It
it will be called.
It says Spring Bean.
So because it is has many @ configuration, right?
Will it be called? It will be called or it will not be called?
It will
Apply
be
your
called.
common sense. Apply your common sense.
It will be called.
It will be called. Why it will be called? Why it will be called?
It contains
Because
such
at that config, it will consider it as a Spring Bean class.
application itself contain the annotation.
So this application is a Spring Bean or not?
Spring Bean.
Yes.
Yes.
Then only it
How
will.
can you say it is Spring Bean? Am I using any annotation to represent the class as a Spring Bean?
No.
But we are using at
Spring
that
Boot
Spring Boot
application
application
contains
notation.
Excellent, excellent.
Internally
Guys. This is what I
configuration
want. This is what I want. We are already having this annotation. This annotation contains configuration. That means that application is also acting as a configuration class only. Application class is also acting as a configuration class only. So that means it is also represented as a Spring Bean. If I write a method with @bean, that will be called. That will be called. That's right. 100% right. Now check it. Check it. Right click, run as boot app. Yes, motor class object got created or not?
Yes, created.
Motor class object created. So that means, can I declare bean methods inside the start class of the Spring Boot, or we can't declare like that?
We can declare.
We can declare. Those methods will be called by IOC container, or those methods will not be called by IOC container?
IOC container will
Those
call by
methods
IOC
will be called
container.
by IOC
Those
container.
will be called by.
Those methods will be called by IOC container. Now see here, can I represent a Java class as a Spring Bean by using component, service, repository, configuration?
Yes.
Those all are class level annotation.
Level annotation.
Those all are class level annotation. So, if any class contains those annotation, that will be recognized as part of component scanning and the object will be created for that class. Now tell me, what is the purpose of @bean annotation?
If you want to customize the object, then we can go for this bean.
If you want to customize the object creation, write a method, and for that method you give at bean annotation. Okay, right. Now similarly, controller, REST controller annotations are available. They are from Spring Web MVC module, guys. When we talk about web application development, then we will discuss about those two annotations. For currently, we're not going to touch those two annotations. It will take another 15 to 20 days of time to enter into the web MVC. At that time, we are going to use those two concepts. Okay. Now, the next question you may have, sir, all these annotations we are using to represent our class as a Spring Bean, then what is the difference between each one? What is the difference? What are the differences among those annotations? When to go for service, when to go for repository, when to go for component, when to go for configuration? What are the differences among those annotations? Do you have that question or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's a question.
When should I go for
Okay, and-
component? When should I go for service? When should I go for repository? When should I go for configuration? Those differences we are going to discuss in the next session, that is on Monday. Okay, tomorrow is Sunday, we don't have a class for tomorrow, so the next session will be continued from Monday. Okay, anybody attended for first time today, first class? Anyone for first class?
Yes, sir. My side.
Yeah, if you are attending for first time, sir, please go to our website ashokit.in. Please register your details here for the Spring Boot microservices. Last previous class recordings I will send to your email. Okay, please register your details here.
Yes, thank you.
People who attend for first time, first class today, please register your details in the Google form. You will get mail from my end. Okay, thank you guys. See you on Monday.
Hello, sir. I have hello.
Yes, sir, tell me.
Yes, sir. Actually, I have two questions. One question is object and the beans are like behaving similar?
Yes.
Is there any difference between behavior?
Behavior will not be different, sir. But when to use which annotation is small differences are available.
And
Behavior
sir,
is
one,
same.
yeah.
Around out.
Sir, and one more question is that कि when हम लोग जब get instance method से object create कर रहे हैं और @beans भी वही कर रहा है मतलब constructor call कर रहा है और object return करेगा उसका तो दोनों में से difference क्या है मतलब उसको bean से declare करे या फिर
here there is no much difference. Here I written a simple line of statement to create the object. Now my requirement is tomorrow if you go I mean as I have shown you here, so if I declare that docket is a predefined class, I want to customize the object, I want to set all these values, but IOC cannot set all these values, right? IOC will simply create the object by using new operator. I just want that object to be created by using new operator. I want to set some packages for that. I want to set some another values for that object. Can IOC do all this logic for us?
No.
It can't do that, right? IOC will simply create the object for
That's
you.
like we need to create a.
Yeah,
But
it
we
will
have to
create the
provide
object
parameter.
new operator. I want to set some values for my object at the time of creation only. That is called customizing the instantiation.
Sir,
So
Ashok,
same
sir,
thing can be do
so
by
what
the
you are trying to say, sir, I have understood is like, for example, if you have any class having zero argument construct, then go for, Spring dependency. If it doesn't having zero argument, then you should have to go for, custom, like @bin.
That is also one of the points. Yes, you can use it.
Yeah, okay.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
Sir, what are the difference between sir @bin and auto-wire, sir?
Auto wiring, I will tell you, sir. If you want to inject one class object into another class, you will use auto wiring. That I have not yet discussed. It will come in the
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bean means to represent your. If you want to customize the object creation, then you will represent that as a bean.
Sir, Spring is providing. Spring is creating object for motor class or after creating the object, it will consider this created object as a string.
Now, here IOC is just calling this method, sir.
Okay.
Who has written this logic to create the object? I have written this logic to create the object. That means programmer is creating the object.
Okay.
IOC is just calling the method. Programmer is creating that object. Programmer giving the object to IOC. IOC will represent that object as a Spring Bean.
Okay. So, for example, you said you have a class object and the motor object will be available in the same location of where that objects are maintained.
Exactly. Yes. The treatment will be same for all the objects now. Treatment will be same. User DAO is also a Spring Bean. Motor is also a Spring Bean. But how the objects are created, that is different. But the treatment is same.
Yeah, sir. One more question, sir. So if you are not mentioning @bean, so we have to call like motor, some application, maybe static method if it is considered application not create instance we have to call to get the motor.
If you call that, it will become a normal Java object only, right?
It will be normal. So okay.
Yeah, you created a method, you call that method. How IOC will know about that?
No, we are creating, right, sir? We are creating object. So
if you
then
create now, simple example, sir. Now what you are trying to say is, I will create an object for the application class and I will call that method application dot create new instance. Okay.
Yes.
Now where you can use this object now? Within the main method only or not?
Yes.
Now, can you use this motor class anywhere in the application?
No, we cannot use it.
You can't use it. But
yeah, okay.
If you declare like this, you can use the motor object anywhere in the project.
Yeah, okay. So loose coupling and as well as
that will be in the IOC. You can inject that motor object anywhere in your project. But if you manually call that method, that will be limited scope to only this class method. That's it.
Yeah, okay, sir. Right, good.
Hello, sir. Can we change the order of bean instantiation by IOC container?
Order we can change, but it is going to create them by using alphabetical order for the package names. Okay, first C config. First base package will be scanned. After that alphabetical order. In this alphabetical sub packages, which one comes first? C comes first. Config. After that D. Okay. After that service. After that utils. Last.
Okay, thanks.
It is going to scan the packages in the alphabetical order.
Okay.
Got it?
Yes.
Hi, sir. Can you write any business logic on that method, or it is specific to object creation?
You can write the business logics also, whatever you want you can do. Generally, configure object instantiation logic only we write. We don't write the logic to interact with the DB, something like that. We will write the logic which is required to create that object.
Okay, sir.
Ashok?
Yes, sir.
Always that bean written method should return the object, right?
That is the main purpose of you are writing a method, right? To return that object.
Okay. So that returned object will be considered as a spring bean.
Yeah, then it will be represented as a spring bean, and that bean will be eligible for auto wiring. Yeah, you can inject that bean anywhere in your project.
Okay. Thank you.
Sir, could you please specify the benefits of declaring by @bean?
Customization, sir. That is what I told you. I am telling that from past 15 minutes. Customization. I want to set some values at the time of object creation only. Now, here
that can be done by the constructor with na.
Here, if you see that, who is calling you? Who is creating your object now? I don't want IOC to create that object. I want to create the object on my own. I want to inject some values for that. I want to set some dependent objects also for that. I want to write my own logic. That means I want to follow builder design pattern. I want to build object for my class. I don't want IOC to create the object. I will create the object. I will give my object to IOC. Then you will go for @bean. So slowly you will understand that, sir. We will go to the data source property.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Okay, can we use bean at field level?
Sorry?
Can we use bean at field level?
No, sir. It is at the method level.
Hello, sir. Since the object will be managed by Spring IOC container, so can we say that on that specific object, suppose for motor object, the finalize method is never going to be called?
When that object is going to be removed from the IOC, then it will be called.
I mean, okay, so there will be some cases that it is going to be removed from IOC container.
Exactly. Yes. If you close IOC container, if you close the container will remove that object.
Okay.
If you are going to terminate the container, container is going to remove that object, right?
But I mean, suppose we have created a Spring Boot application and it is running, and
Here you are going to get the return type of the IOC container.
Okay.
Right. Now, after my logic execution completed, can I close my container?
Yes.
So if I'm closing that container, that means I am asking that container to shut down. What that container will do? It will remove all the objects available in the container. When the objects are removing from the container, the finalize method will may be called or may not be called.
No, no. I mean, in real-time scenario, we are not going to call the run.close method.
Right, because in the real time, we are going to develop a web application, we don't close it. If it is a batch application, if it is a standalone application, we can close it. Now, your project requirement is only to read the data from a file stored in the database. After reading the data, storing in the database, you can close the container, right?
Yes.
If it is a web application, we don't close it.
Okay.
If it is a standalone, we will close it.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Okay, sir, if I am using a REST template, for example, if I am using REST template means I am not at all going to customize that. At that time, I can directly write as auto-wired REST template.
No. For REST template, you can't do auto wiring, sir. REST template should be created by using new operator. That is what they have done in the Spring.
Okay, that's what
REST template is provided based on the builder design pattern. You have to build the object for REST template. That's mandatory. You can't auto wire REST template directly.
Sir, is there any annotation to remove object as a string?
No, man.
Exclude.
All right. Fine, guys. Thank you. See you on Monday.